Hi, I'm Kimmy with On William Street, and we are here to help you become a more confident quilter, from the piecing to the quilting and everything in between. This week, we are going to learn a fun new free motion quilting motif. So for this month, the motif that we're going to do is kind of like a little bit of a viney feather motif, and so this is one that works. You can put it inside of shapes. To fill in a triangle or a diamond very easily, or else you can also just go ahead and do it back and forth in rows. So I'm going to show you the back and forth in rows. It could be used as an all-over pattern, but it's one that works great if you want to fill in borders or sashings, or like I said, you can even fit it to be into specific shapes in your quilt as well. So this is, like I said, it's kind of a play on a viney feather. So if you want to put the vine in first, you can draw this in, or you can just start on this side and kind of draw your vine in. If this was a design where I was going all the way from one side to the other, I probably wouldn't try to stitch that out on my sewing machine. I would probably, just draw that in there with a marker. If you feel more confident and you don't need a vine, a vein down the center, a spine down the center, you can definitely skip it. But it just kind of keeps things a little more centered if you have it in. Then we're just going to come out and we're going to make a loop, and we're going to come back. Then we're going to go make a loop on the other side, about the same size. Then come up your spine a little bit and make another loop. So it's not a full feather. I'm just going to fill in that space back and forth. You don't need to worry about touching, and just travel up the spine. Don't need to worry about touching the vine before. This is one that's good practice if you want to practice echoing back on your same line, because you're going to go out, follow that same line back in. And as you can see, I'm just making this fit the space. So do them bigger if you have more space to fill, a little bit smaller if you don't. And then off. So if I was doing this as an all over, I would then come down here and I would draw in my next vein, and I would actually alternate probably. So start on this side, and then move my way up this way, and just making them fit, almost touch but not quite. Hold my paper down as they go back and forth across the space. If you're using it in a border or you're using it to fill a shape, you would just have the one vine going off the one side. And then just keep going. All right, so for this one, I'm going to go ahead and I am going to go put the vine in first, because it is a little bit of a smaller space, and I find it easier to have a spine. One thing to keep in mind though is if you are putting your spine in with thread, you're going to go back over that spine again. So there's going to be a little bit of thread buildup. That's something that bothers you, I would draw it in as opposed to stitching it in. And we're just going to do a nice gentle curve. To the bottom of the piece. And again, with this design, this is when I'm going to try to put the least amount of movement going back and forth this way. So I'm going to try to be moving it up and down as much as possible. And then we're going to come in and we're going to put in our first loop. It's going to be a little trickier in the corner. This is one reason why it's smart to keep extra fabric here, so you're not trying to stitch all the way to the end. I didn't for my practice sandwiches, but for a quilt, I definitely would have extra space around the quilt. And then just go ahead and do it on the other side. Come back to the middle. As you can see, I didn't trace exactly over. You can see a little bit, I didn't get exactly on top of the line. And that's totally fine. Just keep going. It will all come together just fine in the end. So this is something to note, a good place to note this, because you can see as I was going around this curve, I had less space inside. So I actually had 2 outside swirls to the 1 inside swirl. So just keep that in mind. You don't necessarily need to match it up and have exact amount of swirls on both sides. All right, so now that I'm to this side, this is what I said. I'm going to go ahead and put your spine in, and I'm going to come back the other direction. So I'm going to put my spine here, but I want to stitch from the other direction. So this one I'm going to come off the side, and I'm actually just going to cut my thread, and I'm going to turn it around and start over, because if I do my spine down, that's going to set me up to go the opposite way. And the reason I like to go the opposite way with this design is simply because it makes it so that it's easier to nest those swirls into each other. One thing with quilting is you kind of want to make sure you have nice even distribution, especially with an all over pattern. If you've got, you know, some custom quilting where you're going for empty space, that's one thing. But if you want it to kind of read all as one all over pattern, it's nice to have some consistent spacing and density on those designs. And this will allow me to space that a little bit better. Now with this second spine, I'm not trying to match this one. I'm not trying to mirror this one. I'm not trying to go opposite. I'm just doing a nice gentle curve across the fabric. And then I'm just going to fill it in with the vines. So there isn't any specific pattern I'm following with the spines other than trying to kind of space them relatively even across the piece. So this design is a really great kind of an intro to feathers. If feathers intimidate you, this is a great way to kind of get used to that same motion. It's going to be the same shape, but without having to worry about the stress of making sure that everything lines up perfectly and everything, you know, the tracing back over is perfect. So it's really a great way to kind of get used to those feathers and to gain some confidence before beginning feathers. So grab some paper, doodle it out. I definitely recommend sketching them all and practicing first. It helps you to kind of see where to go as well, so that as you're filling in those spaces, you feel confident in the way that you're moving your fabric around. And then try stitching it out and see how it goes. If you have any questions, let us know. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you join our newsletter, we are going to give you access to our subscriber library where we have lots of fun free quilting projects. And we'll send you deals and coupons periodically as well as a way to say thank you. And we'll see you next week.